Time for something a little different today. It's time to take that to the doctor.
You want to help me with this video?
Seems like it. Okay. Easton EC90SL. Good, bad, or ugly? Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the problems I've had the last couple of months, I guess. Winter riding takes its toll on your kit and your gear. I have a list of issues that happened over the last few weeks. Changing a chain. Yeah, try and change a chain regularly because I want to kind of look after this. It's absolute black chain ring, 44 teeth. I've had that on a few years, maybe 2 years, and I managed to keep it in pretty good condition by changing the chain regularly. So I put this on the other day, but evidently, turns out, I left it just a little bit too late this time. And the cassette on the back here, it was skipping. And I pretty much only ever use this range from there, where we are, to almost 11, the 11. It's 3611. So all in here, all of these, from the 11 up to, I think it's the 19, they needed changing basically, needed replacing. So I needed a cassette. But money's tight and I didn't want to buy a brand new cassette because they're, you know, 80, 90 pounds or $100 or something. But I'll have a look on eBay. And there weren't that many 3611s. There was one. I saw another one, a 32 to 11. I started looking at the specs of the rings, and I realized that from 19 down to 11, from 19 to 11 here, they're exactly the same. So I thought, well, that was going cheap. It's going like 20 quid or something. You know, it was low miles. I wouldn't normally buy secondhand, but it was low mileage. I thought, yeah, I'll take a chance. I'll get that, and I'll just change out the rings that I need because I hardly ever use them. In most of my riding, everything I do is here. So these are like almost like brand new. So I just bought this cheaper cassette and just changed the parts I needed. Now I've never done that before. It was a bit of a gamble, but it's paid off perfectly. Absolutely no problem. Cleaned everything up, works a treat. The cheap way of getting an updated cassette. Spent, I think it was 30 quid all in, postage and everything, you know, which is way better than 80 or 100 quid. And that helped. Chain was quite cheap and the chain ring keeps going nicely. Result. There's one. So the next problem. So I went out for a ride with a friend of mine the other day, a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty hardcore off-road, deep, muddy ride. It's just after winter here in the UK and the mud was thick. So towards the end of the ride, and I started to feel a bit of sloppy movement in the pedal on my right foot. And I thought I was imagining things. Anyway, I pulled over at some point and had a look at it. Yeah, sure enough, this was flopping around inside the pedal, not this one. I thought, major drama. So I'll link a little video in there of what I made at the time, showing this pedal. It's quite funny. It was still in, you know, it hadn't fallen off, so I could ride home the rest of the way, but I knew I had major problems then. So when I got home, I cleaned it all up. I had a look at the problem to see what it was, and I'll talk you through it inside. By the way, this place is just full of cats today. Hello. No, you can't have it. So, my Easton EC90SL carbon cranks. And in fairness, they lasted a couple of years, but I had problems. I'd read about problems with them, that they had some issues, but I thought I was one of the lucky ones because for the first, I don't know, 6 months or so, maybe more, I didn't have any issues. And then the issues started to show up. The first issue I had, I don't know if I can show you all this very well, but inside here, where the spindle joins to boss, there must be some sort of aluminium boss inside where the spindle joins in. I've had it all apart, so I know what's going on here, but the crank itself is hollow carbon. So there was play. It's hard to show you without two hands, but a little bit like that, but that's exaggerated because that's not fixed. But this side, there was a little bit of play between the spindle and the crank arm itself, which shouldn't have been there. So with one of the guys in work, where I was working, we, this is blasphemy, but we drilled some little holes in it. And there's a tiny, you won't be able to see it I don't think, but there's like a tiny 1.02mm hole there. We poured in a whole load of thread locker, just as an experiment because I had nothing to lose. We poured it in, left it in this position, and it all ran down there, and it filled up and probably secured that boss into position. And to be honest, that side has never been a problem since. Put it all back together and it worked. And that lasted a good year or so without any issues. In fact, it still lasted now. There's been no problem with that. I think we had to do it a couple of times actually. And that's it. It lasted well, lasted another year. It was going strong. I had no issues. Until 2 weeks ago when I started having some problems where the pedal was in here. And you can see the aluminium, I'm assuming it's aluminium, a boss inside there and there, and the same inside there. This is where the pedal was attached and it was wobbling, coming loose. But when I got home and had a good look at it and took it off the bike and took it apart, I saw right in there a piece is broken off, a bit like a broken tooth, and you can, I don't know if you can see it moving. So it was like that, which means your pedal was flopping around all over the place, but still going around. So I slept on it and thought, I've got an idea here. Maybe I can make a little piece to go in there to help give some stability and then fill it full of the old thread locker, hence these patches. So that's what I did. I fashioned a little piece to go in there like a filling for your tooth, bonded it in as best I could with what little materials I had, which was like an epoxy resin stuff. Drilled a couple of holes. There was already a hole there because the guy in work had already done, we'd patched up this side, we'd already rebonded that side. So there's a hole there which I covered and there's a hole there which I drilled. So I drilled a hole there, filled it full of thread lock, put it in that position for a day or so, let it all run down, and then gave it a test. But what I overlooked is I put the pedal back on, and when the pedal went on, it wasn't perfectly straight. So I still had a bit of, with every rotation, I had a little bit of movement. Like that. As I was riding, it was just floating. But to be honest, I did one ride on it, and within an hour, you're kind of used to it. It wasn't the end of the world. It didn't really work out, because I managed to get one ride out of it. Now my plan was, if I can fix it and keep it going for a couple of weeks, fine. Because I already planned on getting the aluminium update to this anyway, which is what came next. So once again, I resorted to our good old friend eBay, and I found a guy on there who was selling a set of aluminium. So the aluminium version is exactly the same, but there's a bit of a lattice work on the inside here. They try and reduce a little bit of weight from the aluminium. Aluminium ones are called EA90, Easton EA90SL, as opposed to EC90. So C for carbon, A for aluminium. So I negotiated with him. He seemed like a decent guy. I got those for 75, 80 quid, which is a bargain, I think. Well, it's not a complete bargain because you could buy brand new ones for about 110. But these were brand new, so I got them for a lot less money. He also got them to me quickly. I would have had to have waited a few more days. So I got them off him. Got them within a couple of days. They turned up perfect. I weighed them, just out of interest, to do a weight comparison of these versus those. I've lost out by exactly 178 grams. So the difference between carbon and aluminium crankset is 178 grams. I'll put some images of that in because I weighed them on the scales. You can see that if you like. It feels so good, it feels so much better. But that wasn't the end of my problems. There was more. Okay, so the next set of problems I found, when I got these off, I tested my bottom bracket, which is less than a year old. I didn't think I'd need to even look at it, but I looked at it and one side was completely crusty. It was like, you could feel it gritty as hell going around. And the other side was absolutely rock solid, wouldn't move. So the non-drive side was completely solid. So I got a new problem there. The problems are just piling up, and this is through winter riding. So I called up my local bike shop, where I'm going in a minute, to tell him about that, and he fitted the bottom bracket less than a year ago. So he was also surprised. Anyway, he did it for me. It was quite a relatively cheap job. I do a lot of jobs on bikes, but I didn't want to do this because it's press fit. I've done threaded bottom brackets before. That's okay, that's a lot easier. But this is press fit. I'd have to buy more tools, spend more time. There's a couple of jobs I don't really want to do on bikes. So yeah, took it up to him. But at the time, it still had my fixed version of these on, this lot. So I explained to him, look, don't look too closely at this crap. Just get me out of trouble with the bottom bracket, and he was good about it. And then I was in the process of doing something else, and my new cranks turned up, and I put them straight on. So then I had a brand new bottom bracket, brand new cranks, everything's good. I've got my new cassette on, got my new chain ring. I'm good to go, back to normal, back where I should be. However, okay, let's go back to the bike for this bit. So there's we were doing a ride one day into the city, into London. A little bit of commuting and back. Some of you quite enjoyed my controversial video. That's cool. That's life. So there was a bit of a drag on the back brake, and there was a few problems, and it was working, but it wasn't working very well. And at some point, it just sort of stopped working, more or less. So I didn't know what was going on. When I got to where I was going, took the wheel off, pushed the pads back a bit. By the way, they're Sram Force 1, in case you're interested. So I kind of pushed the pads back a bit, opened it up, and put them back, put everything back, and made my way back home again. And on my way back home, I basically didn't use my back brake at all. I kind of limited it. And when I was close to home, I just tested it, tried it, and yeah, sure enough, it was hardly biting at all.
Look at the angle on that.
So the problem seems to be, and this is why I'm taking it back there today, because we had a chat on the phone, and he said, is there any play in the lever? And I said, yes, it's been played for a while, maybe a few weeks on and off. So I bled it the other day, and it was better, but it's still not actually pulling up. It's having very little effect on the actual pads down there. So from our chat, he seems to think that within here in the master cylinder there's an issue with the piston, probably not, which makes a lot of sense. It's not retracting properly or not functioning properly. Anyway, that's what I was saying about one of those jobs that I don't really want to get involved in. Yeah, I could buy a whole new one of these levers, cables and that, and I've been eyeing those up on eBay as well. But having a good local bike shop, he seems to be of the opinion that he can do a little job inside the master cylinder here, and maybe get some parts and fix it for me. So that's exactly where we're off now. So I've got to get that done because I need to do some riding. So I've got to make some more controversial videos for you lot. So that's where we're off. Right, so yeah, I just remembered there was another problem which kick-started all of this off. This was pre the chain and the cassette and all the other issues. And that was, for no particular reason, one day riding home from work, I decided to snap a spoke. It just pinged. There was a bit of a creak beforehand, like for a week or so before, which was lucky because I'd just been on a massive ride the week before. And it just pinged on the way home. So, me being me, this is why the Alp kit is here, because it's more of a tool kit rather than this little epoxy one you have up here, which is too small. So here I've got new tools, and I've got, guys, always carry loads of tie wraps. Tie wraps are great. They can fix everything. Cable ties, you might know them as. But here, amongst other stuff, cable ties, always cable ties. Very useful. Anyway, it didn't exactly fix my problem, but what they did in the short term to get me home was that spoke was just flopping around in the wind as I was riding. So I was able to take a bit of it with a small tie wrap, just wrap it up and keep it, tucked out of the way so it wasn't going to jam into anything else. And I tied it on, and to be honest, I rode on it for the rest of the week. So I just tied it to another spoke. I linked it to one of these spokes and just tied it up real tight, and then carried on riding it for the rest of the week, which wasn't a problem. By the time I could, get the bike back up to him to fix. So yeah, another problem. Winter riding takes its toll on your bike.
Come on, get her.
She doesn't even live here.
You don't even live here. You're somebody else's cat.
that's it. Dropped the bike off at the shop. He's ordered the parts. It's the pistons, probably within the left-hand lever for the Sram Force 1. And it'll be a couple of days before I can get it back, or it's nearly the weekend now, so I probably won't get it back till the middle of next week, which is a pain because I have plans for Monday and Tuesday. But definitely better to do it that way for me. I'm lucky that somebody will do that job, because otherwise it could have meant buying a new lever with cable, a new caliper, all the rest of it, and we're talking quite a lot of money. But a good local bike shop like that, you can get the parts at a reasonable price and fit them for reasonable labour. So yeah, it's a good saving there. He's a good guy. Builds wheels, fixes bikes really well, and doesn't try and rip you off. That's what's really nice. You know, he's a little bike shop, a little bit outside of town. If you're in the middle of London, you're going to get people just taking advantage and ripping people off and stuff. You know, yeah, kind of, not directly, but doing more than maybe is necessary. But he's sensible. He just does what you need doing, and he'll talk to you about if anything else needs doing.